government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. It is Friday, the 22nd day of February 2008. We're going to be live here for the next 3 hours. One of the writers of that San Francisco Chronicle story about concentration camps and martial law being set up in America will be joining us. He's a former congressman, coming up in the second hour. And I've gotten a few emails and seen a few comments in the Infowars.com message board. People saying, Alex, you've been talking about this for more than a decade, crying wolf. We're sick of hearing about it. And then there was another person in the Dig comments, and he was serious because I went to his Dig page. It was all neocon propaganda, saying, I'm sick of your lies. There's no plan for camps, but I wish they were there. I want to kill you and gas you in the camps and just murder all of you. So there's not tyranny, and we're not in danger of it, but he agrees we should be killed. Ladies and gentlemen, if myself and many others hadn't been on air, and if scholars and professors and former members of Congress and many others hadn't been blowing the whistle on the moves to set up martial law, like Congressman Jack Brooks did in congressional session, brought it up, and in a way the head of the committee said, shut up, that's top secret, you can't talk about it. He did that in 1986. If we hadn't have been talking about this, the people now would know. It wouldn't be a major issue being talked about by Naomi Wolf, Bob Woodward. The list goes on and on. Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, Willie Nelson, Ron Paul. The list goes on and on. Now, sure, I was one of the most vocal people. I made 3 police state films. It's been my main issue before 9/11 and even during 9/11. We talk about it about once a week because they're building FEMA camps. They're training the military to take your guns. They did it in New Orleans. And now they've trained the preachers to suppress you and tell you to go along with it. They've hired, through InfoGuard, 23,000 executives. They plan to expand that for martial law. This is happening. They've had Tommy Franks go out and give speeches about how martial law is coming and how it'll keep us safe. They're intending to try it. I don't know if it'll be under Obama or Hitler or McCain. It doesn't matter. They're all from the same ilk. You better be glad we're talking about this. But right now, we're joined by Dan Hamburg. Dan Hamburg, of course, is a member of the House of Representatives from California's 1st District, in office back in the 90s. He's involved in a lot of different political actions and investigations. He also heads up the Voice of the Environment, and he wrote a story for the San Francisco Chronicle, Rule by Fear or Rule by Law. And he gets into PDD 51. He gets into the funding for martial law, the camps that are in mainstream news. So I thought we'd have him pop in today and give us his perspective. We had the Supreme Court on Monday say that Bush is above the law, say that literally he can do whatever he wants. Congress has not even been allowed to see PDD 51 in its entirety. They've been told that they're no longer involved in continuity of government. This is dictatorship. Now, again, it's the office accruing these unjust, tyrannical powers. These can easily be passed on to Barack Obama, Hillary, McCain. And we had, of course, Professor Scott on yesterday concurring that this is a 30-plus year program by the military-industrial complex. Always the greatest threat to a free society is its military and the corporations that grow up around it and control it. Daniel Hamburg, thanks for spending time with us.
Good morning, Alex. I feel right at home. listening to your introductory comments. I think I'm on the right radio station.
I think you are, my friend. We appreciate your work. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you woke up to these issues, some of the other areas you didn't have time to get into, and then how you got the San Francisco Chronicle to publish this.
Well, I've been involved in, left politics, for want of a better term, since the 60s, since the Vietnam War and the Civil Rights Movement. So, I go back many, many years in active politics, mostly in Northern California, where I reside, and I was a congressman from northern coastal California, and been involved in a lot of environmental issues, social justice issues. I don't really need to recount them all, but the way I got interested in this particular issue was looking at some of the things our local county sheriff was involved in. I just noticed an article on the front page of our local paper in which the sheriff was requisitioning these storage facilities that were going to be placed in strategic locations around the county, and he was asking county residents to contribute to an inventory of equipment that was in their possession so that it could be used in the case of an emergency. And it just kind of piqued my interest, and, I started wondering, well, what does this have to do with, the job of a local county sheriff? What's the linkage between this kind of activity and the Department of Homeland Security? What kinds of, I knew, certainly back to the Ollie North days, that there were plans to incarcerate citizens in the case of civil unrest. A lot of this is hardly new, and as you point out, when you have a country that's basically being run by the military and by its industrial components, this kind of thing is going to be both profitable and and efficacious. I mean, they're going to need a way to deal with people when they get out of line in large numbers. And, of course, back in the 80s, the fear was that if the Reagan administration invaded Central America, there would be a mass uprising of protest against that, and they needed places to take people to, in order to make sure that civil unrest could be contained. So I knew none of this was new, but certainly since 9/11, and that's where I begin my article, this has all been stepped up.
And no doubt it's increased
dramatically.
Exactly. I would say 1,000%. I mean, they're shifting large sectors of the economy, recruiting and colleges over into it. Now, in 99...
I do want to address, Alex, if I could, one other thing you asked, which I think is an interesting question, is how did we get this article in the Chronicle? Because, you can go to the Internet and Google in any of these terms, and you'll get, thousands and thousands of hits. But my goal from the beginning in researching and writing this article was to get it into a mainstream newspaper, because I knew if it did, it would be much harder for people to say, oh, this is just, more Internet BS. And the reason that happened is because Mr. Seiler and myself have been writing for the Chronicle for over 10 years, and we've had some pretty hard-hitting articles in it, but nothing as provocative as this one. And it was mainly because of a long relationship with the editorial page editor at the
And I would also imagine, we commend their courage. Well, I would also predict, and tell me if I'm right, that you guys could come in for every claim you made and show them that it had already been admitted by the White House.
Well, the piece was, had quite a few footnotes, and, we could point to exactly where we got all the information. But still, for a major mainstream newspaper to say that, let's see, what was that the government has contracted with companies to build thousands of rail cars, some equipped with shackles to transport detainees, I don't think a sentence like that has been in any other mainstream newspaper in the country to date.
No, Daniel, I commend your courage, and I want to flesh that out with you in the time we have today. But before we go any further, in 99... I got a call from a cop who's a friend of mine. He said, listen, they're building an emergency FEMA relocation center at the old Robert Mueller Airport. And he said they're about to lock the airport down, but you can still get in there. And I went in there, and we got video, bolts and chains in the floors, porta potties, barbed wire, just like what we saw at Pier 57 in 2004 at the RNC in New York, where they scooped up more than 2,000 peaceful people and put them in there. And all over the country, they've built these centers near airports to fly people out. They admit it's for domestic insurgents. I think listeners who just now tuned in need to understand this is real. They really are gearing this up.